My sister broke into my house and changed the locks while I was away to move in after I told her no. Whenever I finally plan something just for myself, something finds a way to mess it up. I am not even exaggerating. That week, the plan was simple. 10 days of hiking, no work emails, no family drama, nobody needing me for anything. I had my backpack open in the middle of the living room, gear in small piles, snacks lined up on the counter, and for once my brain felt kind of quiet. No one was crying on the phone. No one was hinting that I should cancel. Nobody was reminding me who the responsible one in the family was. It was just me, my little house, and this weird feeling that maybe I was actually allowed to enjoy something I worked for. I kept checking my list anyway, rolling up socks, refolding the same jacket, going over the route on my phone like it was some huge exam. 10 days. 10 whole days of not being the on-call emergency contact for everyone else. It honestly felt almost illegal to be that excited about peace. My name is Kendra, by the way, and before all this, I was the designated adult of my family long before I was actually an adult. I was the kid who remembered dentist appointments and school deadlines while my own mother forgot where she put her keys 3 times a day. My sister, on the other hand, floated through life like some chaotic little storm everyone thought was cute. When she broke something, I got yelled at for not watching her. When she cried, I had to apologize for whatever she decided I did. When she called in the middle of the night because she made a mess of her life again, guess who picked up and fixed it? So when I bought my house, that small one-story place with a wide living room and a kitchen that finally had enough counter space for me to cook on more than one burner at a time, it felt like I had finally stopped being just the family fixer. I worked ridiculous hours for 2 years, took overtime every time they offered it at the office, skipped weekends away with friends, and basically turned my 20s into a savings challenge. I was proud of that down payment in a way I cannot even explain. Signing those papers felt like proof that I was more than the family fixer. I was a person with an actual life, which is exactly when my sister decided my house was also her solution. The day before my hiking trip, I was rolling up a pair of socks when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but my brain heard that phantom little voice it developed over the years. What if it is an emergency? It was not an emergency. It was my sister. Hey, can I stay at your place while you're gone? Her message popped up like it was the most casual thing in the world. Just for like a week or 2, maybe 3. Stuff with my roommate is bad again. My stomach dropped even before my brain finished reading. The last time she stayed at my place, it turned into a 3-month invasion that ended with a broken lamp, a cracked window, and $2,000 missing from a drawer where I stupidly thought cash was safe. She swore she would pay it back. She did not. I had to send her a formal letter asking for payment just to get part of it, and my parents acted like I was running some mob operation instead of trying not to drown in bills. So no, absolutely not. This time I typed slower than usual so I would not soften the answer. No, I wrote. You cannot stay here. I am leaving everything locked, and I do not want anyone in my house while I am away. She replied within seconds like she had been waiting with her thumbs hovering over her screen. Seriously? I have nowhere else to go. My roommate kicked me out for no reason. I helped her for years, and now she is being evil. I took a breath, counted to 5, then 10. I reminded myself I had the right to say no. Ask Mom and Dad, I told her. They have a guest room. Already did, she answered. They said no. I thought you at least would care. That one stung a little, not going to lie. My parents never said no to her. If they said no this time, something must have gone down, and I will admit some tiny guilty part of me was curious. But I also knew my parents. Saying no to her probably meant she had screamed at them about something stupid like they did not buy her favorite cereal. I am sorry things are rough, I typed, but I am not changing my mind. Last time you stayed here, you took money and trashed the place. I am not going through that again. I need this trip. The dots appeared and disappeared for a full minute, like she was deleting and retyping her fury. Then came the flood. Wow, so petty. You are really going to hold a little mistake over my head forever? You know I was going through a lot. I thought you were supposed to be my family. I guess this house turned you into someone else. Do not complain when nobody is there for you. I muted the thread. I had learned that step in therapy after my nervous system decided anxiety attacks were its new hobby. Silence that conversation, breathe, and remind yourself you do not have to respond to every emotional grenade thrown at you. I shoved my phone in the bottom of my backpack, zipped it up, and told myself that this time, I was not backing down. The first few days on the trail were exactly what I needed. My legs hurt in that good way, my shoulders adjusted to the weight of the pack, and my brain finally slowed down. There were no dishes yelling at me from the sink, no emails with red exclamation marks, no sister sending 300 messages in all caps. Just trees, my own breathing, and the sound of gravel under my boots. At night, I crawled into my sleeping bag and fell asleep so fast I barely remember the dreams. On the fourth day, the path climbed up to this ridge where people always said the view was gorgeous if the weather behaved. The wind was brutal, but my phone finally caught a weak bar of signal, and I pulled it out just to take a picture and maybe text my friend that I was still alive. The screen exploded with notifications the second it woke up. Group chats, random alerts, and then a string of messages from my neighbor. "Hey, sorry to bother you," one of them said, sent the day before. "Just checking. Are you supposed to have movers at your place? There is a van here and a guy messing with your front door." My stomach dropped so hard I had to grab a tree trunk. I scrolled. "Update," the next message said. "Your sister just told the guy she got locked out and you were at work. He is changing the locks. This does not look right." For a second, I honestly thought I was going to throw up on my boots. My hands were shaking so badly my phone almost slipped. The wind sounded like it was roaring directly inside my skull. My heart went from calm hiking rhythm to full fire alarm. I called him immediately. The connection cut out twice before it rang long enough for him to answer. "Kendra?" "Finally," he said. "Listen, I did not want to overstep, but this looked wrong. She showed some paper, but it did not look official. And that guy barely checked anything. I tried to ask questions, but he just said he was doing his job. She changed my locks," I said, and my voice came out thin and high. "On my house, while I am out of state. I am pretty sure that is what just happened," he said. "She had a bunch of boxes with her. Looked like she was moving in." There is this moment when your brain tries to protect you by pretending reality is not real yet. I remember staring at the rocks under my boots thinking, this cannot be happening. She would not actually do that. My sister can be a disaster, but even she has limits. Then I remembered the missing cash, the broken lamp, the way she shrugged and said, "You are being dramatic," when I showed her the damage last time. Maybe she did not have limits. Maybe I was the only one who kept pretending she did. "Thank you for calling me," I told him. "Please do not confront her directly anymore. Just keep an eye out if you see anything dangerous. I will handle it." "Do you want me to call the police?" he asked. "No," I said, even though every cell in my body screamed yes. "Not yet. I need to get home first." I ended the call and just stood there on the ridge with my heart pounding and my eyes burning. The mountains in front of me looked fake, like one of those posters people put in offices to make them feel less depressing. My peaceful trip was over. The bubble popped. It did not even make it halfway to 10 days. I turned around and started walking back down, the pack suddenly feeling twice as heavy. The hike back to the trailhead took hours, but I barely remember the views. My brain ran in circles the whole time, flipping between murderous rage and this deep, sick feeling of being violated. My house. My safe place that I worked for, dreamed about, cried over. She just rolled up with a van and a smooth lie and took it over like it was a spare couch. By the time I reached my car, my legs were jelly and my eyes hurt from the cold wind and from trying not to cry in front of strangers. I drove to the closest small town, found a motel with buzzing lights and a front desk that smelled like old coffee, and collapsed on the bed with my boots still on. Sleep was not really sleep that night. It was just my body shutting down for a few hours, while my brain replayed every fight we ever had in a messy loop. I got up before sunrise, threw my gear into the trunk, and started the long drive home. It took almost 2 full days with one more stop at another cheap motel. I barely tasted the food I forced myself to eat at gas station diners. Every mile closer made my chest tighter. I kept picturing my sister in my kitchen, feet up on the table using my favorite mug, maybe laughing with strangers about how easy it was to get in. The more I imagined it, the more my hands clenched on the steering wheel until my knuckles were white. When I finally turned onto my street, my heart was beating so fast it felt like it was trying to break out of my chest. My neighbor was on his porch pretending to water a plant that definitely did not need any more water. He saw my car and almost tripped over the step getting to the sidewalk. "She is not here right now," he said before I even parked. "She left about an hour ago." I did not want to say anything by message that would make you panic more, but she definitely has been acting like she lives there. I thanked him, forced a smile, and walked up to my own front door like I was walking into a courtroom. The key I had used for years did not even go into the new lock. It bumped against the metal like it was hitting a wall. For a second, I just stared at it, hand frozen. Then the anger finally pushed through the shock. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. I stepped back and looked through the front window. The furniture was there but rearranged. There were boxes stacked against one wall, a cheap rug I had never seen before on my floor, and a pet carrier sitting in the middle of the living room. There was also a cat. A cat. I could see it through the glass, staring back at me with that bored, judgmental look cats always have. My throat started itching just from looking at it, which I know is ridiculous. But that is how bad my allergy is. I could also see a folded piece of paper propped up on the table. When I edged around to the side window and squinted, I recognized my sister's handwriting. Big, loopy letters, hearts on the exclamation marks. Of course. I called a locksmith from my car. I gave him my license, my deed, every document I could grab from the folder I kept in my glove compartment. I am that kind of person, remember? The responsible one who keeps important papers close. He checked everything 2 times, nodded, and got to work. When the new lock finally clicked open, I stepped into my own house and felt something in my chest twist. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was not mine. It was this heavy mix of perfume, old takeout, and that dusty animal smell I always tried to avoid. My eyes watered immediately. The cat bolted under the couch when it saw me, tail puffed up. On the kitchen table, the note waited like a punchline. "Hey, sis," it said. "Surprise! I knew you would say no if I asked, but I really had nowhere to go, so I figured you would understand once you cooled off. Do not freak out. I will keep things clean this time. Please do not be mad, we are family. Love you." There was a little smiley face at the end. A smiley face. I had to put the note down and press my palms into the table so hard my fingers hurt. My vision went blurry for a second. It was not just that she had broken in. It was that she genuinely did not see a problem. In her head, this was cute. This was a quirky little sister move I would roll my eyes at and forgive because that is what I always did. I walked through the house and it honestly felt like walking through some weird version of my life where someone else had taken over the role of me. In my bedroom, my sheets were wrinkled and smelled like her perfume. My closet had clothes shoved to one side to make room for her stuff. There were makeup stains on the bathroom counter, hair products scattered around, and a towel on the floor that was definitely not mine. The living room had empty bottles and a stained glass on the coffee table, and there was a burned spot in the corner of my couch like someone had balanced a lit cigarette there and forgotten. I checked my game console out of habit. Turned it on, and nothing happened. The power light flickered and died. One of the controllers had a button smashed in like someone had thrown it during a tantrum. Of course. By the time I made it to the kitchen, my eyes were burning from more than the allergies. My fridge was full, but not with my groceries. She had shoved my food to the back and stocked it with her own stuff and way too many bottles of cheap alcohol. And right next to the counter, there was the cat's litter box, in my kitchen. The smell made my stomach roll. I had to step outside, stand in the yard, and scream into the air just to get some of the rage out. I am not proud of how loud I got. I am pretty sure my neighbor pretended not to hear. But I needed that moment, or I was going to start throwing things. When I finally went back inside, I switched modes. This is something I do when things get too crazy. I flip from emotional disaster to project manager and start making lists in my head. First, document everything. I took photos of the changed locks, the note, the rearranged furniture, the bottles, the burn mark, the broken console, the bathroom mess, the cat stuff, everything. Every little insult to my space got its own picture. Second, get her things out of here without being accused of throwing them on the street. I opened every drawer, every closet, every box, and sorted her stuff into piles. Clothes in one section, random knickknacks in another, shoes, beauty products, everything. I found a few documents that looked important and stacked those separately. I also found some family photos and old letters and decided right away I was not going to be the villain who threw those out. The cat was the hardest part. I could feel my skin starting to itch, and my eyes were puffing up. I called my friend who volunteered with a local animal group and basically begged. "I cannot keep this cat here," I said, holding my breath as I stood in the hallway away from the living room. "I am already reacting and it has been like 20 minutes. I do not want anything bad to happen to it, but I literally cannot breathe." She came over with a crate and a bunch of soothing words for the animal. I stayed back and watched from the doorway, sneezing like crazy while she coaxed the cat into the carrier. "We will take it to a no-kill shelter," she said. "I will put your sister as the contact and explain the situation. They will call her. If she does not pick it up in time, we will find someone else to adopt it. The cat will be fine." I nodded so hard my head hurt. "Thank you. I cannot deal with one more living creature relying on me right now." After the cat left, the air cleared a little, and I could finally breathe without feeling like my throat was closing. I swallowed some allergy pills and kept packing. It took hours. I labeled each box with her name and a list of contents, took a photo of the label and the inside, and stacked everything by the door. My back hurt. My whole body felt jittery, and I kept having to stop because I would find some little thing she had messed with and feel another wave of anger. Once everything was boxed, I rented a storage unit for a month. I loaded the boxes into my car and made multiple trips to drop them off, signing the contract with my sister's name down as the person whose items were stored, listing myself as the contact and explaining the situation to the clerk. I gave them permission to note that any pickup had to be scheduled in advance with identification. I kept the important documents, the family photos, and the expensive electronics she had brought that clearly were hers, like a tablet and a camera, in a separate closet in my house, just in case anyone tried to accuse me of stealing. I was not about to let her spin this into a robbery story. When I finally finished, it was late, and my whole body felt like a bruise. I changed all the passwords for my internet and any smart device, wiped down every surface with cleaning wipes meant to handle pet allergens, stripped my bed, and put new sheets on. Then I sat at the table with my laptop and wrote a very calm, very clear message. I came home and found that you had moved into my house without permission, changed the locks, brought in a cat, held parties, and damaged my things. I wrote, "This is not acceptable. Not. Your belongings have been packed and placed in a storage unit under your name. You have 30 days to schedule a pickup. Here is the address and the contact information. After 30 days, any unclaimed items will be considered abandoned by the facility. Do not come to my house again without my permission." I sent it by text. I sent it by email. The next day, I printed it out and sent it by regular mail. Because if my family taught me anything, it is that you need paper proof for everything when people love pretending they never heard you. Her replies started almost immediately. At first, she went with the sweet route. "I know you are mad, but can we talk?" she wrote. I was desperate. "I thought you would understand once you saw how bad things were." "I am not discussing this by message," I answered. "The situation is already explained. You did not have permission to be here." Then she snapped. The next messages came in one after another, lighting up the screen. "You had no right to touch my stuff," she wrote. "That is theft. You stole and hid my things. I am going to sue you. You are acting insane. You always were dramatic. I am your sister. You cannot just throw me out like trash." I put my phone face down and tried to focus on anything else. It did not last long. That evening, as I was wiping down the last kitchen cabinet, someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. I froze, then crept to the peephole. She was on my porch, with two people I vaguely recognized from her social media, probably friends she had convinced I was the villain. Arms folded, face twisted into that self-righteous glare I knew way too well. "Open the door," she shouted. "I know you are in there. You cannot lock me out of my own home." The two strangers chimed in, yelling about how unfair I was, how I could not just take someone's stuff and change the locks. One of them stepped off the porch and banged on the living room window. My heart jumped straight into my throat. I backed away and grabbed my phone. My whole body was shaking so badly I could barely hit the buttons. "Hello, what is your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. "I need officers at my address," I said, and my voice came out smaller than I wanted. "My sister broke into my house while I was out of town. I had the locks changed back, and now she is here with people, pounding on my door and yelling. I am alone. I am scared." They stayed on the line with me until I heard sirens in the distance. The pounding on the door ramped up when they noticed someone had probably called. When the officers arrived, I opened the door only when I saw them on my porch. I stepped out onto the small entryway, staying close to them, and handed over my identification and copies of my deed. My sister immediately launched into a performance worthy of an award. "She is lying," she said, voice breaking just enough to sound rehearsed. "She told me I could stay here. She always said this house was our safe place. Now she is trying to act like I am some criminal because she is mad at me." "Do you have any messages where your sister gave you permission to live here?" one of the officers asked her. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling with trembling fingers. I could see the exact moment she realized she had nothing. Her face changed just slightly, but enough. The officer noticed too. "She has texts," I said, my voice steadier now. "They are all me saying no. I can show you mine." I handed my phone over with the thread already open. They read my refusals, her guilt trips, and the dates. They looked at the pictures I had taken of the changed locks, the note, the cat stuff, everything. "Ma'am, you do not have legal right to be here," one of them told my sister. "This is her house. She is the only owner listed. Changing the locks without permission and moving in, that is not allowed. She has the right to ask you to leave and to collect your belongings in a reasonable way," which she did. "So you are just going to let her throw me out on the street?" my sister yelled, tears starting now. She is my family. You do not understand what she is like. She acts perfect and then does this. She is controlling and cruel. She likes making me suffer. I stood there, feeling oddly detached, like I was watching someone else's drama. I could see my neighbor across the street pretending to check his mailbox, but really watching everything. I thought about all the years I had swallowed my anger so nobody would see scenes like this. And here we were anyway. If you want to pursue this legally, the officer said to her, you can talk to a lawyer, but right now you need to leave the property. If you refuse, you could be charged with trespassing. Do you understand? She stared at me like I had personally summoned the officers just to ruin her day. You are really doing this? She hissed. You are calling the police on your own sister? You broke into my house, I said quietly. You changed my locks. You brought in a pet I am severely allergic to. You damaged my things. You refused to leave. What did you think I was going to do, bake you a cake? She started shouting again as they walked her and her friends off the porch, throwing every old insult she had ever used. I let the words bounce off. The neighbors heard all of it. In a twisted way, it felt like some kind of justice that other people finally saw what I had been dealing with behind closed doors for years. The next morning, my parents called. I knew before I answered it was not going to be good. They never called that early unless someone had died or my sister was in trouble. Nobody had sent a message about a funeral. How could you do this? My mother started before I could even say hello. The whole neighborhood is talking about how you called the authorities on your own sister. She was crying all night. What happened to you? What happened to me, I said slowly, is that I stopped being your safety net for her chaos. She broke into my house. She changed my locks. I had already told you both that she could not stay here. Why did you not let her stay with you if you were so worried about her? There was a pause on the line. Then my father cleared his throat. We tried, he said. She had a disagreement with us last week. We thought maybe some time apart would be good, but that does not mean you throw her out like a stranger. She is not a stray dog I can drop a bowl of food for and hope for the best, I snapped. She is an adult who made a choice to invade my home after I said no. I am allowed to have boundaries. My mother launched into the greatest hits. Family is supposed to forgive. You always were the responsible one. You know your sister has problems. She needs support, not punishment. If she ends up with a record over this, will you be able to sleep at night? I slept just fine last night, I lied. I slept better than I did when I thought someone could walk into my house whenever they wanted. If she wants to avoid consequences, maybe she should stop doing illegal things. You are going to regret this when we are gone, my mother said, voice suddenly quiet and sharp. You are destroying this family over a house. I almost laughed. Over a house. As if it was only about walls and a roof, and not about every pattern of my entire life playing out again. I am not destroying anything, I said. I am just refusing to be destroyed by it. After we hung up, I drove to the station and filed an official report, handing over copies of everything. It was not about seeing my sister in handcuffs. It was about documenting reality, putting it into a system that did not care about who cried louder in family meetings. The building itself was not dramatic. No flashing lights, no tense music, just a tired-looking lobby that smelled like old coffee and cleaning spray. I took a number from the little red dispenser, like I was at a deli counter, sat in a plastic chair, and tried not to pick at the skin around my nails. When the clerk called my number, I walked up to the window and almost said I was there to pay a ticket. That felt smaller, safer, less like admitting that my own sister had broken into my house. What can we help you with? The woman behind the glass asked. She sounded like she had heard every version of My Life is on Fire already that day. I need to file a report about someone breaking into my house, I said. My voice came out flatter than I expected. It is a family member. She did not flinch at that. That somehow made me feel worse. Like this was just another Tuesday, not the collapse of everything I had been pretending was working. She slid a clipboard under the glass. Fill this out as best you can. An officer will talk with you in a few minutes. There were boxes for everything. Date, time, description of the incident, known relationship to the person, whether there were weapons involved. I hesitated at that last one, then wrote no, even though part of me wanted to scribble just every emotional one you can think of. By the time I finished, an officer in a short-sleeved uniform called my name and led me into a small room with a table and 2 chairs. No mirrored glass, no dramatic interrogation light, just a space that looked like a sad break room without snacks. So, he said, flipping the form over, walk me through what happened in your own words. I took a breath and started from the beginning. The trip, the messages, the neighbor, The new locks on my door that were not the ones I had paid for. The cat. The broken console. The note with the smiley face. Every once in a while he would stop me to clarify something. "Just to be clear, you told her she could not stay there?" he asked. "Multiple times," I said. "In writing. And she changed the locks?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I can show you the receipt she left on the counter from the locksmith. It has my address on it and her name." He nodded and kept writing. His face never changed much, but there was this tiny shift around his eyes when I mentioned the part where she came back with friends and yelled at my door. It was the look of someone mentally checking boxes. Trespassing. Disturbance. Harassment. "At the end of the day," he said when I finished, "you are the owner of the property, and she entered without permission after you clearly told her no. That is not a family argument anymore. That is trespass. You are within your rights to make this report." Hearing someone outside the family say it, that plainly almost made me cry right there at the table. I pressed my thumb into the edge of the chair to keep it together. "Is this going to ruin her life?" I asked before I could stop myself. It sounded ridiculous as soon as it was out of my mouth. He shrugged, not unkindly. "That depends on her choices from here on out," he said. "What you are doing is documenting what she already did. You are not creating the behavior. You are just not hiding it." He had me sign at the bottom, then explained what would happen next in simple terms. They would log the report, attach my photos and screenshots, and issue a case number. If she came back or escalated, I should call, mention that number, and stay inside until someone got there. On my way out, I stopped at the restroom and splashed water on my face. For a second, I leaned on the sink and stared at myself in the mirror. I did not look like someone who called the police on her own sister. I looked like any other tired woman who had taken a long lunch break and was regretting it. Still, when I walked out of that building with the little card that had my case number written on it, I felt something shift. It was not relief exactly. More like I had finally put a line on paper that said, "This is where it stops." The animal shelter called me a few days later. "We have tried reaching the owner you listed," the woman on the phone said. "No answer, no return calls. Are you interested in adopting the cat yourself?" I laughed, then apologized, then explained through another sneeze that I was very allergic and had barely survived the 1 hour it stayed in my house. I asked if there was a wait list. There was. People were already interested. I offered to cover the adoption fee and supplies for whoever took the cat. "If it makes you feel better," the woman said, "we will make sure it goes to someone responsible." It did make me feel better. At least one innocent being involved in this whole mess was going to land somewhere safe. Meanwhile, my sister went into full performance mode on social media. She posted these long paragraphs about betrayal and cruelty, about how her own flesh and blood had kicked her out on the street and stolen everything she owned while she was mentally fragile. She posted pictures of herself crying, pictures of old moments of us smiling together, and dramatic lines about how you never really know people. At first, mutual friends liked the posts. Some added vague comments like, "Here if you need anything, and stay strong." Then people started asking questions. Simple things like, "Do you have messages where she told you could stay? And why did you change the locks on her house?" She ignored those. So I did what I should have done years ago. I posted my own version once. Just once. No 12-part saga, no crying selfies, no inspirational quote font. Just screenshots of our messages where I said no, multiple times. Pictures of the new locks, of the note, of the cat, of the damage. A redacted copy of the storage unit contract showing her name, the 30-day window, and the fact that her belongings were safe and documented. A brief explanation. My sister broke into my home after being told no, moved in without permission, brought in a pet despite my severe allergy, and damaged my property. Her belongings were packed and stored. She has 30 days to claim them. I would not be accepting abuse or manipulation about it. Then I logged off and put my phone in a drawer. From what people later told me, that one post was enough. People saw both sides. They made their own conclusions. Some still chose to believe her version because it fit the idea they liked better, the one where she was the misunderstood victim. Others quietly reached out to say they were proud of me, that they had seen glimpses of her behavior for years and never said anything because it was family business. The legal process moved slower than the drama, like it always does. She ended up accepting a deal for a minor charge instead of going through a full trial. 6 months of probation, community service hours, and restitution for the damages the estimate showed. She had to pay for both sets of lock changes, the deep cleaning to deal with the allergens, a contribution toward a new couch cover, and a replacement for my console. There was also an order saying she had to stay a certain distance away from me, my house, and my job. My parents blamed me for every part of it, obviously. This could have been handled privately, my mother insisted one day over the phone. You did not have to drag the system into it. Now your sister is marked forever. I tried handling things privately for 30 years, I told her. Look where that got me, with someone breaking into my house the second I tried to rest. They proposed family counseling. They suggested we all sit in a room with a stranger and work through our issues, which really meant they wanted a neutral third party to convince me to back down. I asked if they understood she legally could not be near me because of the order. We can do it by video, my father said. You can be in one room, she can be in another. I am not doing that, I said. I am not going to sit there and have her cry while everyone looks at me like I am the executioner. I am done playing the villain in a story I did not write. That is when they changed tactics. Fine, my mother said, voice icy. If you want to be on your own so badly, do not be surprised when we stop calling. We cannot keep chasing you when you clearly do not care about this family. I care enough to stop enabling someone who keeps hurting all of us, I replied. If you choose to stop calling, that is your decision. I am not going to beg you to stay in my life if the price is letting her walk all over me. A few weeks later, my sister violated the order. She showed up at my job during my lunch break. I walked out to the parking lot with my sandwich, and there she was, leaning against a car, arms crossed. I froze. For a second, my brain honestly thought I was seeing some kind of mirage. What are you doing here? I asked, staying near the building door. We need to talk, she said loudly enough that a few co-workers lounging nearby turned to look. You cannot keep getting away with this. You ruined my life. You are not supposed to be here, I reminded her. There is a court order. She scoffed. What are you going to do, call the police again? Have them drag me away in front of your precious co-workers so you can look like a victim? She started raising her voice, talking about how I had always been jealous, how I hoarded everything nice for myself, how I acted holy but was actually cruel. A few phones came out. People love recording scenes, and this was a free show. I did not scream back. I wanted to. Every cell in my body wanted to. Instead, I walked inside, went straight to security, and told them what was happening. They escorted her off the property and called the authorities themselves, because now it was company liability. Cameras had recorded everything. She got picked up down the street. I filed another report with the same tired officer who already knew our names. He sighed, but not at me. She keeps choosing this, he said. You are just enforcing the boundaries you have a right to have. My parents paid her bail this time. Then they showed up at my house together, knocking on the door like they used to when they brought over leftovers. I almost did not undo the chain. Part of me wanted to pretend I was not home, let them knock until they got tired, and go back to whatever show was playing in the background. But that is not who I am. Or at least it has never been who I was allowed to be. I opened the door just enough that the chain stayed in place. My father's face did that thing it does when he is disappointed. Eyebrows pulled together, mouth set in a tight line, like he is trying very hard not to start a lecture. Can we come in? He asked, glancing pointedly at the chain. No, I said. If you want to talk, we can talk like this. My mother made a small, wounded sound, hand going to her chest. We are your parents, she said. We should not be standing in the hallway like strangers. You are the ones who raised a daughter who thinks breaking into someone's house is a reasonable plan, I said. So here we are. They looked past me, trying to see into the living room, like maybe my sister was curled on the couch and I was hiding her. The emptiness behind me probably made it worse. There was no chaos to point at, just my couch, my coffee table, the small lamp I liked, and the faint mark where the burn on the fabric had been patched. My father cleared his throat. We talked to your sister, he said. She is a mess. She is saying you are making things worse with this report and the order. We are worried about her. I am sure she is a mess, I said. Actions have consequences. She keeps finding that out and then acting like that is a surprise. That is very cold. Young lady, my mother snapped, her voice suddenly sharper. I did not raise you to turn your back on family. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because I had heard that sentence so many times it felt like a reflex. You raised me to fix family, I said. You raised me to clean up, cover, smooth things over, apologize when she blew up, and act like everything was fine. That is not the same thing. My father shifted his weight, like the floor had just gotten uncomfortable. We know your sister has made mistakes, he said carefully. But this has gone too far. Jail? An order? That is not how family handles things. If you would just sit down with her, we could mediate. We could make her understand how much she hurt you. She already knows, I said. She just does not care enough to stop. My mother shook her head like I had said something outrageous. She is fragile, she insisted. You know that. Ever since the divorce. She does not have your strength. You can handle this better than she can. There it was again. The compliment that was actually a command. I am not a shock absorber, I said. I am not a stronger version of her whose job is to cushion her from reality. I am my own person. This is my house. We helped you when you bought this place, my father said, as if that was a trump card. We co-signed. We came over every weekend at the beginning. We painted these walls. We took care of you. And I am grateful, I said. Truly. But that does not mean you get to decide who lives here now. That does not mean you get to hand my keys to someone who proved she will burn my life down the second she gets bored. My mother's eyes filled with tears. They always did at this point. If we had known you would do this to her, we never would have helped with the house, she said softly. I felt the words hit, but they did not burrow in the way they would have a few years ago. Back then, I would have folded in on myself, apologized for upsetting her, tried to fix it. Now, I just let them sit between us like a piece of trash on the floor that I refused to pick up. That is the difference between us, I said. You regret helping me protect myself. I regret every time I let her hurt me because you told me that was love. We stood there in a little silent standoff. A neighbor walked past on their way to the elevator, pretending not to look, but their eyes flicked over us anyway. I imagined the story my mother would tell later about this moment, how cold I had been, how stubborn, how I slammed the door in their faces for no reason. The version in my head was much simpler. They wanted me to drop the one boundary that had ever actually worked. I said no. Please. My mother tried one more time. Just come over on Sunday. We will have dinner. We can talk it through. We can all cry and start over. I am not putting myself in a room with her so you can all take turns telling me I am overreacting, I said. I am not going to let her spin another story and watch you choose it over the facts in front of you. You are going to regret this when we are gone, my father said quietly. You will wish you had not been so stubborn. Maybe, I said. But I already regret every year I spent letting you use me as a buffer. I am allowed to pick what I regret. They did not like that answer, but there was nothing left to say that we had not said in a dozen different ways. Eventually, my father nodded once, stiff and disappointed, and my mother wiped her eyes dramatically with a tissue she pulled from her bag. If you change your mind, she said. You know where we are? I know, I said. That is the problem. I closed the door before they could answer and stood there with my hand on the knob, listening to their footsteps fade down the hall. For a second, I thought I might open it again, call them back, tell them I was sorry, and we could try it their way one more time. Then I looked over at the patched spot on my couch, at the space where my console used to sit before it was smashed, at the stack of legal papers on the coffee table with my name at the top. I left the door closed. The months after that were not some magical healing montage. They were awkward and heavy and full of weird little panic spikes. I installed a security system with cameras, more for my own peace of mind than anything. Every time I heard a car door outside at night, my heart jumped. If my doorbell rang unexpectedly, I checked the monitor instead of just opening the door like a normal person. I also started therapy again. Real therapy, not the half-hearted version I did a few years ago because my job offered a discount. Sitting in that room, talking about my childhood, about the way my parents reacted to everything, about how I always ended up the one fixing whatever my sister broke, made me feel like I had been reading my life in the wrong language and someone finally handed me a translation. I remembered being 10 and standing in the living room with pieces of a broken vase at my feet while my sister sobbed and clung to our mother. She had thrown a ball inside the house even after I said not to. It hit the shelf, the vase fell, and shattered. When our parents came home, my mother looked at the mess and then at me. Why were you not watching her? She said. You know she gets excited. You are older. You should have stopped her. You knew this would happen. She grounded me for a week. She took my books as punishment. My sister got a lecture about being more careful next time and a kiss on the forehead. That was the pattern. I was the invisible safety net that got yelled at when it snapped under pressure. That was the pattern. I was the safety net that got yelled at when it snapped under pressure, I told my therapist. And if I complained, I was ungrateful or dramatic. So I stopped complaining, I just picked up the pieces. And this house? She asked. What does it symbolize for you? It was the first thing that was fully mine, I said. My name on the paper, my rules, my space. When she broke in, it was not just about property. It was about taking that away. Like even this had to be shared, had to be sacrificed for her chaos. Like I was not allowed to have something untouched, How do you feel now that you have held the line? She asked. I thought about it for a while. Tired, I said finally, but also lighter in a weird way. Like I lost something big, but also dropped a weight I have been carrying since I was a kid. My parents still send messages sometimes, short ones on holidays. Hope you are well. Happy birthday. They never mention my sister. I heard through relatives that she finished her probation, did her community service at some charity, and eventually moved out of my parents' house. I do not know where she lives now. I do not ask. Almost a year after that ruined hiking trip, I booked another one. Same trail, same plan. 10 days, low phone usage, just me and my thoughts, and the sound of my boots on dirt. Part of me was scared to even try again, like I was tempting fate. But the bigger part of me was done letting her shadow hover over every decision I made. This time, when I drove away from my house, I locked the door, checked the security system notification, and felt my shoulders relax instead of tense. My neighbor promised to keep an eye on things again, but more as a friendly backup than as a frontline defense. My parents did not call. My sister did not message. The silence felt strange, but not empty. On the third day, I met a group of hikers at a campsite and ended up sharing stories around a small fire. One of them talked about a cousin who kept borrowing money and never paying it back. Another mentioned a sibling who used guilt like a weapon. We laughed, shook our heads, and traded survival tips. You talk about your family like you went through a war, one woman said gently, once the others had gone to their tents. In some ways I did, I said. But I guess everyone has their own version of that, right? She nodded. The difference is you actually left the battlefield. I did not sleep perfectly that night. I probably never will on the first night of any trip again. But when I woke up before dawn and watched the sky lighten over the trees, I felt something I could not name at first. It was not joy exactly, and not relief either. It was more like acceptance. This is my life now. It is not neat. It is not tied with a bow, and there are still people out there telling a version of this story where I am the villain. But I am the one who has to live in my house, with my nervous system, with my sense of safety. Not them. When I came home after those 10 days, the house was exactly the way I left it. No extra shoes by the door, no unfamiliar smell when I walked in, no notes on the table with exclamation marks and hearts. I put my pack down in the hallway and just stood there, listening to the quiet. It was not the kind of quiet that comes from holding your breath so nobody gets upset. It was the kind that comes after a storm finally moves on, when the air is a little clearer and the ground is still damp, but you can start picking up the branches without worrying another wave will hit you from behind. I locked the door, checked it twice out of habit, then curled up on my couch with a blanket and let myself just exist in my own space. No apologies, no explanations, no pretending I was not angry or hurt. Just me and my imperfect, hard-earned peace. People like to say that family is everything. For a long time, I believed that so completely I let it swallow me whole. Now I think family is just people. And people either respect your right to own your life or they do not. Blood does not change that. My sister still tells anyone who will listen that I chose a house over her. Maybe in her head that is true. From where I am sitting, I finally chose myself over being everyone else's backup plan. And if that makes me the villain in her story, I can live with that. I just cannot live with someone else holding my keys again. In therapy later, after I finally dumped years of this out in one go, we sat there in silence for a bit. I stared at the little clock on the shelf and thought about how many hours I had spent fixing things instead of noticing how tired I was. My therapist suggested writing a letter I would never send, just to see what I would say if I did not have to worry about anyone's reaction. I rolled my eyes at first. It sounded like one of those exercises you see in self-help books that you pretend to do and then forget about. But one night, after my parents left that last time and the house felt like it was humming with things unsaid, I opened my laptop and started typing. I wrote about the time my sister told everyone at school that I had cheated on a test when she was the one who copied my answers and got caught. I wrote about how my mother would whisper, "Just ignore her, she is sensitive," while sounding more annoyed at me than at the person actually causing the problem. I wrote about the Christmas where my parents maxed out their card to buy my sister a new phone after she threw hers at a wall, but I got a discount sweater and a mug. Most of all, I wrote about the day I signed the papers for my house, how my father hugged me and said he was proud, then turned to my sister and joked that one day she would have a room there if her life did not work out. She laughed like it was cute. Nobody asked if I was okay with that idea. They just assumed my space would always be available for everyone else's emergencies. By the time I finished, the letter was 10 pages long. My hands hurt. I was sobbing in that ugly, hiccuping way that makes your ribs ache. I did not print it. I did not send it. But getting the words out of my body and onto a screen felt like opening a window in a room that had been closed for years. I saved it in a folder I never opened again. It did what it needed to do. On the second hiking trip, I brought a small notebook instead of just my phone. I am not a journal person usually, but my therapist suggested I write down how I felt each day, not just what happened. So there I was, sitting on a rock with my pack as a backrest, scribbling like some teenager writing about their crush. Day 3, I wrote, I am scared that peace feels wrong. I keep waiting for a text or a call or some disaster to drag me back. Part of me does not trust that I am allowed to just exist without fixing something. Day 6. I saw a family today with 2 daughters about our ages when everything started going sideways. The older one was helping the younger one adjust her pack. No tension, no eye rolls, no martyr complex. I felt jealous and stupid at the same time. Day 9. I am starting to believe that I can be a good person and still say no. I can love people and still not let them destroy my life. I wish someone had told me that earlier. I wish I had listened if they did. Those pages are messy and full of crossed-out lines and sarcastic comments, but they are mine. Nobody else gets to edit them or tell me what I am allowed to feel. When I got back from that trip and walked into my quiet house, I noticed stupid little things I had never appreciated before. The way the afternoon light hit the kitchen counter, the sound of the fridge humming, the scuff mark on the hallway floor that only I recognized because I was the one who dropped a box there on move-in day. My bed made exactly the way I like it. Not asked to double as a crash pad for someone who showed up in tears and left in a cloud of drama. A week after I got back, my neighbor waved me over to his porch one evening. I hesitated, then went. He handed me a soda and cleared his throat. I just wanted to say, he began, I am sorry I did not call you the first time anything seemed off. I saw your sister coming and going for a while before that locksmith thing. I figured it was none of my business. I did not want to be that nosy neighbor. It is okay, I told him. You already helped more than anyone else by messaging me when you did. He shook his head. No, I should have done it sooner. My brother went through something similar. His ex kept using the kids as an excuse to just walk into his house whenever she wanted. It took him years to realize that just because someone is related to you does not mean they respect you. So next time you need anything, you call. I am done minding my own business when someone is clearly out of line. Something about that made my eyes sting. People talk about community like it is just block parties and borrowed sugar. But sometimes it is just a neighbor saying, I see what is happening and it is not okay. I know there are going to be family gatherings I am not invited to now. Holidays where my parents set an extra plate and look at it sadly like I died, even though I live 20 minutes away. I know my sister will keep telling her story, and there will always be someone ready to nod and say, families are complicated, like that explains everything. What I also know is this. I am not the villain in my own life. I am not the bad guy for wanting a space that is safe and mine. I am not cruel for refusing to be burglarized emotionally and physically just because the person doing it shares my blood. Sometimes choosing yourself looks ugly from the outside. People only see the moment you finally say enough. They do not see the years that led up to it. The small cuts, the quiet nights, the way your hand shook the first time you even thought about drawing a line. If you asked my sister, she would probably tell you I kicked her out on the street over a technicality. If you asked my parents, they might say I turned cold and hard after I got the house, that I let success change me. If you asked the version of me from 10 years ago, she might still say I should have kept the peace, kept my mouth shut, and let everyone stay as close as they wanted, even if it meant sleeping on the edge of my own bed in my own home. But you are asking me now, the person who lived it, who paid for every brick, who changed every lock twice. And my answer is simple. I did not choose a house over my sister. I chose sanity over chaos. I chose locks over being walked on. I chose finally being allowed to come home, close my door, and know that if someone is on the other side of it, it is because I invited them in, and I am not sorry. At work, that meant I stopped volunteering for every extra task just because nobody else wanted it. When someone tried to slide a last-minute project onto my desk with some line about how, you are so good with deadlines, I smiled and said, I already have a full plate, maybe next time. The first time I did that, my heart hammered like I had just committed some crime. Nothing bad happened. The project got reassigned. The world did not end. With friends, it meant I started choosing my company on purpose instead of just going along with whatever group dynamic formed around the loudest person. I spent more evenings alone than I used to. Not because I was isolating, but because I was figuring out what I actually liked to do when nobody else's preferences were dictating everything. Sometimes late at night, I would think about my parents sitting at their table, talking about me. I could almost hear my mother saying, "We did our best. I do not know why she turned so cold." I could see my father shaking his head, saying, "She will come around when she realizes she needs her family." Maybe they are right about that last part in a technical sense. People do need support, but support and access are not the same thing. I can still love them from a distance that keeps me sane. Maybe that is the part they will never understand. I used to think forgiveness meant letting people back into your life with full privileges. Now I think sometimes forgiveness is just not wishing someone would get hit by a bus anymore. It is choosing not to let them live rent-free in your brain. It is moving forward even if they are stuck in the same story, telling and retelling it like a bedtime tale that makes them feel better. My sister sent me one more message months after the last violation. It came at 2 in the morning on a random Tuesday. I saw the notification the next day. "I know you probably hate me," it said. "Everyone does now. I lost my job. I had to move. Mom and Dad are stressed. I just wanted to say I never meant for things to go this far. I was just scared and I panicked. You always looked like you had everything together and I did not. I felt like you owed me. That is stupid, I get it. Anyway, whatever. Hope you and your precious house are happy." There was no actual apology in there, just a half-hearted admission buried under self-pity and a jab at the end. Old me would have grabbed onto the one sentence that sounded almost like accountability and run with it, writing back a long message about how we could start over. New me closed the message, sat with how it made me feel, and then archived the conversation. Maybe one day I will answer. Maybe one day she will truly understand the difference between being scared and trampling someone's boundaries. But that is not my responsibility anymore. I am not her safety net, I am not her emotional translator. I am just a person trying to live a life that makes sense. Sometimes when I am cooking dinner in my small kitchen, I imagine a future version of me sitting at the same table, older, maybe with more laugh lines and less hair dye, telling this story to someone else. Maybe a friend, maybe a partner, maybe a kid who thinks they owe their siblings everything, no matter what it costs. I hope that version of me remembers how this feels right now. The quiet hum of appliances, the soft light over the sink, the steady beat of my own heart that finally does not speed up every time my phone buzzes. I hope she can say, without flinching, that drawing that line was the beginning of a different kind of life, not the end of the old one. The thing I keep reminding myself is simple. If I had not locked that door, I would still be living in a house that did not feel like mine.